And welcome to Chapter 5, the Motive Perspective. I want to talk about, obviously motives, which this is really the most basic of issues one might think in personality. The question of why is someone engaging in a particular behavior? What motivates the person to behave that way? Um, and really, this starts to get sort of at an emotional core of um, why someone would do something. Certainly our experience of motivation is one of some kind of internal drive or something pushing us towards something. And it most definitely has an emotional quality to it, which is probably why we have the most difficulty with this particular area of personality. We are tasked with a very difficult problem in psychology of studying ourselves, and we're really good about thinking about what we're doing, thinking about our behavior. So we're really great at cognitive explanations of behavior. Uh, but here we're really talking about something which is almost an emotional experience. We are not good at talking about that because talking about something means you're using cognition, you're thinking, you're not feeling. So they're very different things and very difficult for us to understand that. So a lot of times what we end up with in talking about motives is really just describing behavior and giving a circular explanation for something. So, if you want to know why it is that that particular student in this particular class, let's say, who has read, already read chapter 5, has taken notes on all the, on the chapter, has gone and sought out additional resources to learn more about it and complete all those things. Why is it that that person has that? Well, they're motivated to do well. Well, how do you know that they're motivated to do well? Because they did those things. Well, why they do those things? Because they're motivated to do well. So you end up with a circular thing of, wait a minute, you haven't really explained anything. You're just talking about their behavior and doesn't slapping a label on it and saying that person has motivation is not the same as explaining why they have motivation. Um, so in terms of we're talking about from motives, we're really talking about this idea of needs in terms that they're internal, and it's usually pushing towards some kind of it to resolve some sort of unsatisfactory, as it says there on the slide, unsatisfactory state of being. We talk about them as being primary and secondary, primary being biological, secondary being psychological sources. Um, excuse me. If you are hungry, that's a biological need. Um, if you want money to buy food, the desire for money is a psychological source or a secondary need. Um, and of course, your motives both push you towards something, so drive you to approach as well as to avoid situations. Um, and motives differ in strength. So ultimately, what we would be looking at there is trying to understand what the different motivations are, how they affect cognition, how they operate together. Because certainly one would see that it'd be an issue of being certain motivations may be stronger or weaker in given situations. Certainly, you have elements of approach or avoidance. Um, Busch Gardens has a new roller coaster this year. You may be the idea of the excitement there or the desire to fit in along with your friends may give you approach goals, approach motivation to go and ride that particular thing, but fear as a motivation, giving you an avoidance motivation. So approach, avoidance, how do you end up balance those things ultimately would determine your behavior through their different elements of strength. Um, so we have this idea of press in terms of things that are likely to create a situation that's going to lead you to drink. That's why they advertise. I'll show you the this external thing to act as a trigger for it. Okay. Um, in terms of models of needs, we really have to go back to a very old model. We have as said a few moments ago, we have a difficult time talking about and making progress talking about emotion. So a lot of the research on motives is old research. We've had some difficulties in moving forward with this in the context here of psychologically speaking. We're doing better now looking at it from a biological and neuroprocessing standpoint. But in terms of a lot of the research presented here in this chapter deals with a lot of old models and theories. Indeed, Murray's system of needs is one of those old models, which really he created a system that sort of looked at and tried to classify or identify a number of different needs or motivations. And he developed a test to assess that this idea, his particular theory of different types of motivations. And it's called the thematic apperception test. It is a projective test, very similar in the sense that the projective test as the Washington University sentence completion test, where the idea that you had a sentence stem that you responded to, and how you responded to would reflect something about you. In this case, the TAT, you were provided with a picture. There are a series of pictures you were shown. These are all examples of those kinds of pictures. You would view the picture and, excuse me, view the picture, and then you would have to decide to tell the instructor, tell the test administrator a story. So here, this is the test administrator with her stylish hairdo there, waiting to record the story, and this is the person who is being tested, is looking at this card and has to decide. It has to report what's going on, make up a story to tell me what's happening in that particular picture. And so the story that the person tells is going to reflect something about them, or that's the assumption of the projective testing technique, is that whatever story that you tell there, so clearly that's a person, well, that's the best picture I can get you for that. Clearly, you can see the picture. You should be able to see the picture there. The woman with her, head in her hands and arm on the door does look to be something. It doesn't look like she just won the lottery or something. So there clearly is something that's not good that's happened. But what is it? And so you have to get creative in saying what it would be. Whatever you came up with would suggest some characteristic of you. So we go through all those different stories. Here, this one, who do you focus on here? Is this the old woman is thinking back on her younger days and how happy her life has been? Is this the younger woman going, I'd get out of this darkened hellhole of a house if I didn't have to take care of my old crone of a mother, that sort of thing. Whatever this might happen to be, you get to apply that particular perspective to it, and whatever stories you tell reflects something about you. From that test, from the stories that the persons tell, it assesses you on a variety of different needs. So there's a whole lot of different needs in his model. We're going to talk about just a couple of the major ones. One is need for achievement. One is, these are needs that we have a larger body of research on, and we have shown that they have effects or correlated with a variety of different behaviors in real life situations. So persons who have high need for achievement, much more likely to seek out situations where they are likely to be successful and feel some sense of accomplishment. Candy Crush Saga, you've just achieved level 73, but your friend's got level 85. You must keep going. Oh no, that whole idea of the achieving those different levels and moving up on that particular game is the type of thing that folks high in need for achievement like a lot. And you can see a variety of characteristics there, and the book talks about more of those in terms of great deals of motivating behavior. Likewise, need for power. There may be situations where, would you like to be, we need a leader for this group, who wants to be in charge? In some situations, there are people many times in situations who always want to be the one in charge and deciding where something happens and what occurs, and others who don't want to seek that situation out, that kind of behavior out. So persons who are high in need for power, are much more likely to seek out those situations where they can be in charge. As you can see, the different kinds of situations that's associated with. One of the things that is true for people who are high in need for power is they tend not to associate with other people who have a high need for power, because if somebody wants to be in charge, it's kind of hard to be in charge with another person there who's trying to do the same thing. So they tend to like to have people who are followers around them. So need for achievement, need for power, need for affiliation, desire to be with others, spend time with other people. Um, you can go on Facebook and join and have friends all over the world. Thousands of people who are your friends. You can join Twitter and send out tweets that thousands of people are reading, and you're retweeting and actively engaging with people in those kinds of situations. And yeah, that may not do anything for you at all. So you have different people here, different needs, that motivate that kind of behavior. For some folks, the idea of affiliation in that way sounds great to them. For others, it's like, why? Why would I want to do any of that? So indeed, these different sorts of behaviors there that show up. And then likewise, need for intimacy, which is not the same as need for affiliation. Just because you want to be around with other people doesn't necessarily mean that you want to share deep, meaningful feelings with them. So a different level, degree of that. So you can look for that in more detail again in the textbook, as described there on the slide. So ultimately what you would be looking for here, different sorts of these patterns of needs which relate to different kinds of behavior outcomes. That's the way that this particular model, in terms of best explains behavior, is looking at the different needs, needs that folks have, and in different situational factors and over different points in time, what is more likely to drive behavior for people. Um, and we can add in different degrees of more complexity to this in terms of looking at the textbook is obviously calling incentive value, and it's your perception of the extent to which a given behavior can satisfy a need. So need for affiliation can be met by a variety of different sources. We have to look at how persons decide or evaluate these different behaviors in terms of the extent to which you see that's going to meet that need that you have. In terms of, so there's 2 issues here, or a couple of different issues here to talk about as far as this particular overall model. One is the idea of assessment. Projective tests aren't necessarily the best in terms of reliability and validity. We do see a fair amount more of tests that have been developed since the development of the TAT. A lot of tests have been developed of more self-report that assess individual motives. So asking specific questions about someone's need for power or need for affiliation or need for intimacy, and so deal with just individual specific behaviors. Need for cognition is another one, although it's not one we've talked about up to this point. So much more currently, you're much more likely to see self-report analysis of individual motives as opposed to the use of the TAT to assess those overall motives. Certainly can see a fair amount of overlap with the 5-factor model in terms of the different kinds of behaviors, and that the textbook talks about that. I'll leave that to the textbook. And indeed, these theories mean nothing if we can't use them to look at behavior change. So 2 elements of this, or 2 components of this. One, excuse me, the textbook talks about in regards to looking at what is the motive that underlies some particular problematic behavior and figuring out some other way to satisfy that motive. So it's sort of, you have a need for power, which is causing you to behave in a certain way and is getting you in trouble. If we can figure out a way to get you to, still satisfy that need for power, but in a more socially acceptable way, then we avoid that particular problem. And then lots of research. There's mountains of research on looking at ways to motivate or address achievement motivation. And indeed, one of your videos that you're a TED Talk, you're watching a TED Talk, which deals with the issue. So I will say no more and let her speak about her research. That's all we've got. Look forward to your questions.